an experience with a pyramid, and it somehow the light actually penetrated from the center of this thing. And
well, that's entirely possible.
And it was a solid object, and it could levitate. And when I started asking questions, everybody disbanded. You know, it was a Rosicrucian event, but it was very interesting. I mean, it was realistic. When the light appeared at the top, a low harmonic pulse would also sound. So
yes, so sound and light technology was what the ancients were really about, and if something is actually accurate in terms of its alignment and the dimensions of the pyramid, there's, Peter Tompkins started with that a long, long time ago with pyramid power, and it's real. You can sharpen razor blades in there and all kinds of things.
Carmen, why Egypt? Why that location? For visitation, for teleportation? Why not some other region?
Well, if you look at the globe, the longest landmass and the widest landmass intersect right where the Great Pyramid is. And so it's the geodesic center of the world. And in the ancient times, it was the center of time, and it's the most stable place on the planet. So if you completely, had floods and earthquakes and everything else, the way the pyramid is constructed, it was designed to withstand anything. And right now, I mean, it's been exposed to bombs and all kinds of things, and we don't have the technology to take them down, and they are as solid as can be, even though they've endured earthquakes and floods. So I think that's why.
Okay, next up we go to Cleveland, Ohio, east of the Rockies. Anna, it's your turn. Hi, Anna.
Hi. Thank you both for this fascinating discussion tonight. Lots to think about. I have two questions. The first one is a simple question. Across many cultures, in the depiction of the rulers and their people, they often depict the rulers as being very much larger, and we were always told in school that's because of their importance, but I was wondering if that would be related to the giants being rulers of the people. That's my first question. And my second question is about the race memory. And I used to have an experience when I looked at certain things. It was like a very strong déjà vu. And I was wondering if your experience with the race memory ever came across as something like that, as a déjà vu.
Absolutely. Well, that's the whole point of cellular memory, is like déjà vu. And when, something's being explained away and it doesn't really fit with our cellular memory, there's a disturbing feeling. And that's basically what I've lived with my whole life. It's like, there's something wrong here. I don't know what's wrong. I don't even know what's talking to me. And so, yes, when you get some kind of a memory that's triggering something of who you were before or what you knew before, there are very strong signals, and we've been trained to ignore them. Most people have incredibly accurate intuition. Take your umbrella. Well, the weather report says it's not going to rain, and so you don't take it, and then it rains. We have to listen to our intuition and develop it like a muscle. But, yes, that's how cellular memory works. Larger being more important, well, we tend to think of everything in terms of ego-driven patriarchal rulers, hierarchies, all that sort of thing. But perhaps the ancients were embedding the idea that of giants. But again, we've got to look at the dynasties and when things were created, because when you got down into the 20th, 22nd dynasty and all the Ramses, that really was ego-driven. Me, 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 me. I'm important. I am strong. And that's not what I'm talking about in terms of the high-level initiates that would have existed a long time before that. Does that answer your question, Anna?
Off we go now to Ontario, Canada. Hey, Mo on the international line. Go ahead, Mo.
Good morning, George, Carmen. How are you guys?
Good.
Riveting show tonight, like usual, George. And God only knows how proud I am to be a Canadian like Carmen. I'm very proud of you as a Canadian, Carmen. My question is, queens and wives of pharaohs, during pregnancy, they go through some specific rituals. Would you please shed some light on that, and I'll take my answer off the air, please.
Well, it's interesting because Hakim, who was my mentor for a long time over there, who's now left us, and he's in the Pyramid Code, he says that even dynastic Egypt was matriarchal. And so that and Hatshepsut means the high house, and the ruler of the high house, the one who is up in front. And so it is true that the queens were revered. If you look at Nefertiti and Akhenaten's artifacts that came from the Amarna period, you'll see that Nefertiti was co-regent and she was honored at as much as the pharaoh, and I think that there really was more of that in some dynasties than has been exemplified through traditional Egyptology. And like I said before, the matrilineal line was the one that was followed. So it was always coming through the queen, through the daughter, and then the somebody that was coming outside the family would be brought into the matrilineal line, but always through the daughter. And so that was a ritual that was maintained even when Egypt was patriarchal. So was it really patriarchal? But it became more and more so as they went down through the dynasties.
We've got Maya in Denver, Colorado, west of the Rockies. Hey, Maya, go ahead.
Oh, hi, thank you so much, Carmen, for being on the show again. I don't have a question, but I wanted to share that I have had a lot of experiences of being in different lives. And I was star-seeded here, and my memory is I was star-seeded in the southwest in the Sangre de Cristo Mountains and the southern tip of that. And then I grew in the mountain, in the tunnels in the mountains with, what I'm trying to say, roots. And I was birthed out of the sacred blue lake above Taos Pueblo. And I was a giant, huge being. And I could straddle the lake. And I could
That's big.
Walk over the mountains. And the information I received was that there are giants that are big light beings. They weren't all bad, like some of the shows have said. And also the reason there's not a lot of evidence of this is that we were much lighter, made of light. Our bones were so light that we were buoyant. We could fly almost. And so I'm kind of shaking. So I just wanted to share that with you. That
what time period, Maya?
I'm not really sure. It was eons ago, and I had other lifetimes after that. But what my experience was that Mother Earth had been invaded by dark intelligence or dark beings of different sizes, dark meaning not love, and she put out a call for help, and I was the one who came.
Thank you, Maya. You said that on the radio in front of a lot of people, and I feel strangely comforted by the fact that we're legitimizing these ideas somehow because we've been told not to tell. And I'm particularly struck by the idea of the Sangre de Christos, the blood of Christ. Christ is the Christed one who was enlightened, who had 12-strand DNA. And Blue Lake, because Hakim says everything comes from the blue, from out of the blue. And so even that is a piece of the code. And thank you so much for sharing.
All right, very good. Thank you, Maya. And let's go next to Dan in Boston, Massachusetts. Go ahead, Daniel.
Hi, Carmen. Hi, George. How are you?
Hi.
Good.
It's a great show. I wanted to I have two quick questions. One is, have you found any evidence of Atlantis in your research in Egypt? And also, are you aware that Mark Lehner, who's on the Egyptian Board of Antiquities there, actually wrote a book on the Edgar Cayce readings on Egypt?
Yes, two big questions. And Mark Lehner was publishing and involved in books with Robert Bauval and Graham Hancock, and then and he had to do with the Oriental Institute and the Giza Mapping Project and all of that. And then he went to Egypt, and all of a sudden he was given the second most prominent job in Egypt next to Zahi, which was the head of the so-called Pyramid Builders Dig. And then all of a sudden he went radio silent on everything else. And so he started out being very involved in the Edgar Cayce Foundation, and all of a sudden he stopped with that work. And so I've always been curious about that. I don't know him personally, and